The next session is my session, and we're going to talk about things that have been happening in the last year and a half and items that have happened with the law and statutes and get everybody up to date. Hopefully we have somebody to monitor my chat real quick. Allison, will you please monitor my chat and questions? Thanks. Get my information up here. Okay, can everybody see my screen, the driver education law and policy? Okay, everybody should be good now. Can you see it? Okay, I apologize, sorry, having some little bit of technical difficulties for a minute. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen and we'll get started. Okay, today you guys, just so you know who I am, this is Audra. I'm your new driver's education specialist at the Utah State Board of Education. I apologize, I've been able to meet about a third of you from going around the state, but some of you I have not met yet, but I've talked to on the phone or in email several times. And we're going to go over some of the law and policy subjects and different things that have happened over the course of the year and a half, other than COVID. We're going to kind of leave that out because we should be kind of pretty much back to normal with driver's education. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask though. The purpose of our training today is we're going to talk about who your board members are. We have a Utah State Board that represents you and your different areas throughout the state. And these are the people that you should be communicating with or giving information to bring back if you, obviously you can communicate with me, but these are your representatives for the state. And there are people who are on our board to represent you in your areas. We're going to talk about the new licensing and endorsement rules that have came up with your teacher's licenses this past year, and also some different rules that have changed within our department through driver's licensing and through public safety that affect you. We're going to ensure that you guys get all of your answers, the questions you might have answered, that if you don't understand some of the rules and policies, if you feel like something's changed, it hasn't. It's just that some of the rules and policies we haven't been following for a long time or been a little bit slack on. So we are going to go back to making sure that we're following the directions that we were intended to be going. And none of this is to punish or hammer anybody or say that we're lording over you. It's just that I'm trying to make your programs better and expand our programs and making sure that we can get the funding that we need and we don't have legislators calling me and complaining about our program. So it's all for your benefit, and you're always welcome to call and talk to me. And then at the end, we'll have some ability to share and do questions and answers. These are your board members. Everybody should have a board member representation up there. So look for your school district and find out who your representation person is. People serve, we rotate the board every 2 years. And if we have open seats. We have this open seat down here for Nebo, Park City, and Canyons. You don't have to necessarily be from that area, but it would be helpful if you are. And you do not have to be a board member or be on the board to attend board meetings. I put the board meetings in our newsletters that we receive at the first of every month. And if you have want to be part of the board or just listen, we can do them virtually, or you're welcome to come up and attend. We pay for your lunch and we pay for your travel if you want to attend a board meeting, or if you're interested in being in a board meeting, feel free to attend. Like I said, those will be in the newsletters if anybody would like to attend one of those or be part of that. These are the different agencies that govern over driver's education. So you need to consider the fact that driver's education is not just the Board of Education telling you or directing you, or we are funneling money to you, but the money comes from everybody who purchases titles and registrations in Utah. And so the money flows from them to us. So from UDOT basically to us and then back out to you. And we're going to talk about funding a little bit later in this presentation so you understand it more clearly, so you can communicate financial needs to your upper offices. So the legislators, some of our rules that we follow and are regulated by are through the legislature. So we have statutes, and then we have laws and policies through our agency. And we also have statutes and laws and policies through driver's license division. Because not only are we having a class for driver's education at our schools, we are providing a way for students to get licensed. So then that adds on the rules and regulations from driver's licensing and public safety. And then within your school district, you also have policies and rules and regulations that you have to follow within your school district regarding driver's education. So I don't know if any of you watched Allison's course, but you can watch it later today again, and she talks about this. All your school districts should have policies and rules regarding driver's education. And they, when you mentor or teach new people, they need to know what those are. I mean, that could be to how to gas up your car, how to get it washed, how to get the car from point A to point B, what happens if you get in a crash, any of those type of incidences, time frames. So you have all of these different agencies that have guidelines for you, and it might be very confusing, but if you have questions about it, please reach out to me. And that's why I'm going to kind of go over a few of them today, and then we're going to make things a little bit more clear. We're going to rewrite the policy manual a little bit so it's a little bit more clear to you in case you have questions, but you're always welcome, as I said, to reach out to me if you're not sure how something's supposed to be working in your program. We'll start with learner's permits. There was a change this year with learner's permits. The learner permit age is still 15 years old. And we talked about testing a little bit. You do not have to give the permit test. You're not required to give the permit test unless you're requested to do so by the student or the parent. So you don't have to just set up a time to do permit tests, is what that means. If somebody asks you to do the permit test for you, yes, you have to provide it, but you cannot give any accommodations on this permit test. It has to be, you just hand them the permit, they take it, and you score it, and that's the score that they get. If they need any accommodations, they must go to the driver's licensing office. Permit tests are valid for 18 months. So once they take it and you put it into the DIM system, then it'll be valid for that long. This is new. Permits are now valid for 18 months. They used to be valid for 12 months, but because of a legislative change, House Bill 18 this year, as of April 15th, which is tomorrow, the permits given out will now be 18 months long. The permit must be valid if the student is in the car with you, and you must make sure that's in their possession. I know sometimes we get complacent and forget, but make sure you check to see if they actually have that permit with them, and check the date on it to make sure it's valid. If someone drives with you or tests with you and it's not valid, it will not count. They will have to come back and repeat everything they did why they did not have a valid permit. And if they want to renew the permit, they have different ways to do that now at the driver's licensing office. They've gone very digital since they've had COVID. So some of the agencies, you can actually don't even have to go to the driver's licensing office to get it renewed. Changes within educator licensing and endorsements. This is your specific license that you have right now for your teaching license. Some of this is new and some of it is not. It's currently you have to have a secondary education license, a special education license, a CTE license, or a counseling license to attach your endorsement to. So if you know somebody who's in elementary education, they can do a special request to get the endorsement added. But right now, these are the only specialties we have. It used to be K through 12, but now it's secondary. Some items that we do not have, some changes that occurred last October to licensing. All of licensing for your teacher licenses have changed last year. I'm just going to specifically talk to what changed for endorsement, but if you're curious about what changed with your teaching license, reach out to someone at your department in HR. You can call our office and ask. I can even explain it to you if you call me, but I'm going to just talk about driver's ed today. There's no longer an SAP or a halfway through endorsement process for our endorsement. The reason why is because three things were happening. One, the reason why we had the halfway through is because schools needed people very quickly. Well, we've set up our courses now where you can take and finish the endorsement in 2 semesters. So basically 6 months. Before, the way the classes were set up, it would take sometimes up to 2 years to finish your endorsement. Now you can finish it, if you're dedicated, you can go in and take the classes and get it finished in 6 months. So there's no need to have a halfway through process. The people that were doing the halfway through process, their mentors kind of dropped off the radar and stopped watching over them and stopped mentoring them halfway through. And these students, as you say, I say they're students, but they're instructors, were teaching without a mentor present, which is not legal because if something happened, no licensed teacher was overseeing them. And so it was causing us some legal and civil issues. The other thing that was happening is people that were on an SAP forgot they were on it, and you only have 2 years to finish that, and they weren't completing them up, and then they had to start over. So because we have our courses back to back and hold them several times a year now, it's a much easier process to get somebody through, and they will not have to have any delay time, and it's a lot faster than the SAEP process that we had previously. One of the people who somebody asked in the chat if you were still on an SAEP, licensing should have already reached out to you, and because we don't have that process anymore, what you've completed, you need to find out from me what you need to do to go ahead and get your endorsement, because that license will not show up any longer. There's also no LEA specific or an associate license that you can attach to this professional license. You must literally get your driver's education endorsement to be able to teach driver's education. The endorsement requirements, I get a lot of questions for this. Feel free to have people reach out to me if they're not sure how to get an endorsement, or if you know of somebody who wants to become a new driver's education teacher. We have, Allison, Shauna, and I have trained almost 72 new instructors in the last year and a half. And so the program is very strong with adding instructors, and the process, as I said, is a lot smoother and easier. They need to take 3 courses, Health Education 350, Health Education 351, and those have nothing to do, that's just what they're labeled. They have nothing to do with the health department. They just happen to fall in the health education department at University of Utah. All the courses are online, so they don't have to attend the universities. They're all Canvas based. The 3rd course is the Driver Education Law and Policy course. We hold that 4 times a year. So it's very easy to get into those courses since we have them 4 times a year. The courses at the University of Utah rotate. So starting May 17th, we're going to have Health Education 351, and that's considered the summer course. And then we'll have a fall course at the University of Utah, which will be Health Ed 350. And then in the spring, it'll go back to 351, summer, and it rotates. We have a class every fall, summer, and spring. The student teaching practicum is 120 hours. Allison spoke about this on Monday. The mentor and the student teacher must sign up in Midas to take this and track their mentoring hours. It gives you the log sheet and a checklist and everything that the practicum teacher needs to do and everything the mentor teacher needs to do. The mentor is required to fill out evaluations on the student. We monitor the time with the student, we monitor the time with the mentor, and the mentors are paid, they're trained, they're paid to be a mentor, but both the student and the mentor must finish the course to be able to get credit for it and have it go towards their driver's education endorsement. So that's no longer just something where you get a sheet and you sign off on it. You need to go into Midas and actually sign up for those courses. So the last change that happened in licensing is the examiner training course used to be a separate course or a separate license for the educator. This is no longer the case. Nobody identified it, or no one in licensing even knew what it was. From now on, when you're an endorsed teacher, you take the classroom, you take the behind the wheel, and you take the examiner training course, and all of it is part of your endorsement. You are able to do all of those things when you complete and finish. The other change that occurred was you must now always have a valid first aid and CPR card. Previously, this was only the requirement for when you very first got your license, but now it is the requirement always. And this was also a change for PE and coaches. PE teachers and coaches, they always have to have it valid too. So the way to take these classes is, ask around your school, ask a PE teacher, ask a coach, find out when they're going to hold these courses at the school and jump in on those. You can also take them online if you'd like, and you should never have to pay out of pocket for this. None of the changes that were made should cost any money. If you're not sure why it is, please reach out to me. But the examiner training course that we have is at no cost. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And your first aid and CPR should not be at any cost. If the school needs to reimburse you, I will reimburse the school, or we have other programs within our agency that will pay for these courses. There's been a lot of talk and communication about The new road skills examination, we have not been getting trained very well or getting very good information that we need in the past. And so we have we're working with a company, the Street Smarts company, Q on Safety, and our course will be finished on April 26th, and you guys will get a new training course on how to do the road examination. This is very important. We're testing and doing this on behalf of driver's licensing. We're doing these, both the permit test and the road test. And so we need to follow their rules, their regulations, and we need to make sure we're administering this properly. This is a standardized test and it needs to be unbiased. So where else do you hear about standardized tests? With at your school, there's standardized tests for ISATs and ASATs and, like, you know, all the AP courses and different things that are proctored. All of those exams are standardized and they have to be done, which means the same every single time. And they also need to have bias taken out of it. So this new course, everybody will be taking it. You're only required to take it every 5 years. However, some of your departments, your agencies really feel like this is something we're lacking in and they're going to want you to take it every year. And that's fine. The course will prompt you when it's been time for you to take it again. So you don't need to keep track of your certificates anymore. And it will tell you how to, and it'll tell you that it's time for you to take the course again. If you have Street Smarts at your school, it'll be the same login that you use for Street Smarts because it's the same company that's creating it. And I have a link of like a little video promo there of somebody, you know, I wasn't able to do several screens to share. So to show you guys the little link that we have to show you what some of it looks like right now, but it's a really nice course. When you take the course, it will take you about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how well you do on it. And that time will count towards your professional development. It'll send me a report that you spent time taking this course, and I will give you credit for that amount of time that you've done that. So every instructor will be taking it. As soon as it gets done, I will send it out to everyone, and then you can log in, take it, and then from then on, it'll prompt you. Some of the new things that you've heard or that we've been sending out or that we've had sessions on Monday. We talked about maintaining consistency in the testing standards and eliminating bias. And part of the driver's licensing statutes and laws for administering the behind the wheel exam is that you can't test your own students. This has always been the law, and it's always been in statute. It's just something that we've kind of gotten away with, or not away with, but away from, just out of ease. And because I understand the kind of the biggest points of this is that your school district might not be paying you for doing the behind the wheel exam. They need to pay you for the time that you put in. Nate just talked to you about special education students. If those students need more time driving, if they need more class, you know, behind the wheel, if they need it in class, if they need, you know, whatever extra time that is, or if a student isn't on an IEP or 5-4 and just needs extra time, whatever time that takes to train that student, our 6 hours of road time, for example, is a minimum. If they need more time, your program should be paying you for that. They should be paying you for the test if the student needs to test twice. If it's a IEP or 504 student, they can push some of those funds from those programs over to those students because they might need extra time or extra tests. So you need to sit down with your schools and explain to them. And if you want me to be involved in those phone calls, or you want me to come to your school, I'd be glad to do that. But we fund your schools fully to pay for driver's education. We give your schools money to pay them for your salaries, for your cars, for your entire program. And then you get a little extra on top of that from students. And so I can help work with them if needed, but I don't want people just opting not to do an extra things or extra testing or test the way that you need to because of funding, because we can work on that. If we need to go back to driver's licensing and say, hey, we're testing on behalf of you, where's our funds for that? I can do that. And I've already started that conversation with them. Students pay a permit fee to the driver's licensing office, and part of that permit fee is for them to take tests back at the driver's licensing office. But if we're performing the tests, we probably need funding to make sure that you guys are covered to do that testing. So the bottom line is we need to try to make sure we eliminate bias and we standardize our tests for behind the wheel. I know that some of you might be the only teacher for miles at your school. If that is the case, if there's no one else to test, reach out to me and I will work on a plan for how we can adjust that or fix that and do what you can to be less biased. Make sure that you're not doing your road exams during the 6 hours of behind the wheel time. This is actually when you're an instructor and you're training them for the 6 hours of behind the wheel time. And since you're not going to be testing them, there shouldn't be any problem with you doing the test during that time. This is a good way to think of it. When you're doing your training behind the wheel, you have a hat on that you're an instructor. When you go to do a test, you take the instructor hat off, you put on the testing hat. Now you can only be a tester. You can't instruct them. You can't think about what you knew about that student before, and you are just doing the test. And you need to have the test be the newest standardized test. Make sure that you have the newest one, and make sure that you're doing the maneuvers that are required. You can't just make up maneuvers to do those skill sets. You have to use the maneuvers that driver's licensing office has told us to use. If you have any questions about it, please reach out to me. You should not be giving more than 2 road tests. After they have failed 2 road tests, send them back to the driver's licensing office. They need to take the rest of the tests from them because they might need something different, or and we also need to be able to have somewhere to log that they're filling those tests. DIMS is going to be changing soon. We're going to start adding some more features to it because we need to pull some more data from it. One of the changes is we're going to be able to put in failed scores. So if a student fails some portion, we will be able to show that they failed it, and other teachers can also see that. There was a question, can we get the newest form sent out for the road test? Yes, I will make sure that everybody has the newest form that they need to do the road tests, and everybody will be retrained. The training that I'm going to send out is how to not only do the test, but also how to put everything into DIMS. So the course will walk you through both of those pieces, and it'll show you specific maneuvers, specific skill sets, and make sure that you understand what you're supposed to be doing for those road tests. There was a question from Matt about why not trust to give the written test and not the driving test. It has nothing to do with trust. It has to do with the statute and the law, and it has to do with the fact that you're just, it's standardized and unbiased, and you need to make sure there is absolutely no way that you can be in the car with a kid for 6 hours driving them around and not know their skill set. And also the student is comfortable with you. The student's comfortable driving with you. The student is comfortable doing the routes that you're doing. The whole thing is a comfort thing. At the end, you want to make sure that you cover yourself for liability. That student needs to be able to drive on their own in any circumstance, in any condition. And when you've put them into that small little situation where you know the kid and they're familiar and they're comfortable, it just kind of takes all of that out of it, and so it removes you from being liable if something happens to that student later, that somebody truly knew that they could drive on their own and they had that skill set. It comes back to the fact that, does everybody in your school teach the same? Maybe not. And this might be a way for you guys to start getting together to understand that when you're testing other students, other teachers' kids, that maybe there's a gap, or maybe there's something that they're missing, or the students have a flaw. that you weren't aware of, and that it gets you guys working more closely together to fulfill those behind the wheel standards that they needed to be learning. And the student, and that course that you're testing them on shouldn't be anything similar. Go to a completely different area of what they were doing training on, so that they're in a situation where they're not necessarily comfortable with your route or you, and that it truly shows that they can drive on their own and they can handle it. When they do take the road test, it's valid for 12 months. There's no change with that. It's always been that way. If you guys have any other questions, I know Allison's trying to keep up with your questions and chats. But if there's something, I'm going to read back through them, and so I'll make sure that I answer them, and I'll know who it was that asked, so I'll reach out to you on email. How to maintain your driver's ed endorsement. There was the licensing changes that I told you about that occurred back in October. A lot of, and they changed for every subject area, and these are some changes that happened with the driver's ed endorsement. You used to have 8 hours of professional development every 5 years to renew your license. Our agency, along with those other two agencies and the legislators that got involved with our endorsement this year, felt like there was so much liability and concern, and because of some civil things that have come up, that they really wanted our driver's ed teachers to have more training and to make sure that they knew the new policies, or knew the new procedures for things, or were trained on, for example, how to do road skills tests or special ed, all the things that we're kind of learning about today. Have more information from zero fatalities. And so there is a new requirement that it's 8 hours of professional development annually. Annually means from July 1st to June 30th. I have been tracking your hours for you. If you attended AAA training, if you attended board meetings, if you had meetings with me at your schools, you have received credit for that. There's several different ways to get credit. Attending the annual training. Annual training from now on will be in no cost. So it was no cost to attend this, but if we had it in person, it would be no cost to you. We will cover your expenses for the conference. You can always attend other states' conferences, zero fatality conferences. You can have your own building training if you want. If you meet 4 times a year as a group, if you have an agenda and you take roll and I know who's there and I pre-approve that, yes, this is what you're teaching, I can even come and attend if you want to assist or just watch. If you do it virtually, I can also help. I've had several school districts that wanted to have meeting and little mini trainings. I've set those up and they had training with me and asked me questions for 2 hours. Like literally, I had Salt Lake District get on a Zoom meeting with all their teachers and myself, and I answered questions for them for 2 hours. If you want that kind of training, if there's some kind of professional development training that you want to do to help with your online, some type of Zoom training, Nearpod training, any trainings that you might have that you think that you should get credit for, or you watched a video about something and you implemented that into your program, send me an email. We'll discuss it, talk about it. There's a lot of different ways for you to get professional development. I don't want anybody stressing about the fact that you can't get the time in, because there's a lot of ways that you're probably always improving yourself and improving your program and doing professional development in another area that might count towards driver's ed. So just reach out to me and ask, and we can take care of it. Somebody asked a question about standardized district pay for districts for every teacher. There is absolutely no talk about it. I do have a report from last year and this year that your directors and your business managers reach me all the time and ask me for it, and I tell them how much people get paid. Because of different size of programs, it makes it really difficult, because if one school only has 30 students and another school has 3,000 students and another school has 10,000 students, they just have different incomes and they do have different range that they pay. Some pay by student, some by the hours, some by salary. And we leave that up to the LEAs. And so the state, we have nothing to do with your pay. It's all within your own district. But if you want to see what someone else makes and you can compare them, they're the same district size as you, or same type of school as yours, where they, you can't really compare classroom versus online versus blended versus, everybody has, some people have ranges, some people don't, some use simulators, so they all have different expenses. But if you want to see what the wages are or what they charge other students, I have that report and I can easily send it to you via email. Back to the codes. It has always this has always been in our code for monitoring your guys' driver's licensing, having a good driver's licensing record. And one of my admins sent out a Google sheet to you guys asking you for driver's license a couple years ago. And some people were wondering why. Well, to be a driver's ed teacher, we are required to monitor your driver's record. And if you have certain offenses on your driver's record, such as DUIs, alcohol, drug offenses, suspensions, convictions, more than 2 moving violations in 1 year, you're not allowed to be a driver's ed teacher. And we revoke your endorsement. These types of violations have different revocation amount of time. So let's just take a DUI, for example. If you get a DUI and you're a driver's ed teacher, you cannot be a driver's ed teacher again for 5 years. That's what the code says. If you have more than 2 moving violations in 1 year, you can't be a driver's ed teacher for a certain period of time. There's a list of ways to get it back. So you can take some courses to get it back, remove points from your record, or you can just let the time lapse for when you can start doing it again. If I am notified when these things happened, and so when I'm notified, your boss was notified, and then you're notified. Obviously, you would probably know if one of these things happened to you, but you would be notified if your endorsement was suspended for one of these reasons. So be aware that yes, now we are monitoring your driver's records. I already talked about this, that you may need to maintain your first aid and CPR card. Procedures for how to get endorsed after losing it are now going to be, I'll rewrite the policy manual and it'll be very clear in that it'll say, if you get a DUI, you can't come back for 5 years. If you have a drug and alcohol offense, it's 3 years. If you get suspended and it'll have all that very clearly in it. And obviously if I call you, you would know, because I would let you know how long it would take. The House bill, kind of talked about this already. There was a House bill that went through that begins April 15th. What the House bill did was change sex to gender on the driver's license or permit card. The permit now expires in 18 months instead of 12 months. And there was also a code change that had to do with not having to do observation time. That observation time was for private companies only. It did not affect public schools. So yes, you are still required to do observation time with the students. You should never be alone in the car with the students. So you're always going to have another kid in there doing observation time, and they should not just be hanging out in the back seat or playing on their phone. Put everything away and give them assignments, give them things to do, give them other things to be watching while they're in the back seat. You always have to remember that, why a student is driving, they probably only hear about 15% of everything you say. They might be stressed, they have other things going on, other input. And when they hear you say it again to another student, now they are hearing it again. They're getting that input where they can actually use the information. So don't discount students observing and making sure that they're paying attention. We feel like this is very important and we will never get rid of it on the public school side. A little bit about your funding. Reimbursement for students in driver's education happens twice a year. So you guys report your numbers to me and I give funding back for the students you have in classroom, online, and behind the wheel. And you get this, the reports are due on the 15th of July and the 15th of January, and then you receive the money the next month. And this is all for wages. And your school district gets the money and they can use it to pay your wages of whatever time that it is that you spent doing driver's education, or they can even use those funds to reward you for mentoring. Your mentoring money will go into there. If you mentored a new student, I will give extra funds for that, which is $500 to mentor. When you mentor someone, you get $500 extra, and your school district will give that to you. If you have students that are on fee waivers, whatever the amount that the school charges for driver's education, that's the amount the school gets back. So there's no loss just because a student takes the course for free. If you charge $150 to take driver's ed, we give you back the $150 to cover that loss. If you have new teachers that want to take courses, your school district can use that money to send new teachers through the University of Utah courses if they would like. That's at the discretion of the school to use that money for anything that has to do with cost of wages or the teachers. The next fund amount of money that you get is distributed in September. This is the excess funds. Every year around July or August, we go through all the requests that we have for more cars or fixing something, building sheds, garages, towers, ranges, whatever it might be. And we go through as a committee and decide what need is goes first. We actually haven't had more requests than we've had money. So we've been able to, in the last 2 years, at least since I've been there, fund everybody's requests. So if you guys do have requests for something other than the money that we already normally generate to your program, those requests need to come into me in July or August. I have been having meetings with all of your business managers and a lot of your directors explaining how the money works. And so now they should be communicating better with you. Or if you go to your business manager or the person that's in charge of your driver's ed funds, they are very aware of how they work now, and they're really happy that they understand how it works. And you can communicate your needs. They don't know anything about driver's ed other than here's this bulk of money. So please communicate with them about needs or concerns that you might have regarding funding. So if you're driving kids extra hours or you're not getting paid for your road tests, go communicate with them. They have the money to cover that for you. Driver's ed vehicles. I have made a new form where you can request equipment and stickers. I send it out to all your coordinators and your directors. If you need it, just ask me for it. Or if you need something, just email me. You can order stickers anytime you want. Usually we have these conferences in person and we have a whole bunch of stickers just laying there for you. But since it's virtual, I've been sending stickers out every time you guys purchase a new car, assuming that you need new stickers. But if you need to order them, just let me know. Make sure they get them on the cars. Make sure that the vehicles that you have are only for the purpose of driver's education. You use driver's education money for the cars. They need to be used just for that. Reporting crashes. There was a few times this year and last year that we had some crashes that were little fender benders, or they happened because you were backing out of your cage or different stuff like that, and you ripped the mirror off, or a kid did, or something, and it was just a small damage. You need to make sure that you report that damage to your, if it's in the act of teaching driver's education, it must be reported to the police. This saves you, it's a liability issue. It will save you down the road if some kid comes back and says they're injured, or someone from your upper administration says, oh my gosh, this happened to the car when it really didn't, or someone else damages it. You need to make sure you have a report to protect yourself. If there's any damage that's occurred because you're getting the car ready, or something happened at the gas station, or you're just there, please report it to your supervisor so they can get it fixed. It's not good when they find out 6 months down the road that something happened to a car. Someone asked the question about how you get paid to be a mentor. When you're in the mentoring class, we'll explain that to you, but when you get, you will do 2 evaluations for that new teacher. Your super direct supervisors needs to have those 2 evaluations. And when you go print off your Midas transcript, it'll show that you were a mentor in Midas, and give them that transcript and give them those evaluations, and they will they have that $500 for you. I send out that money for the mentors twice a year. So I'll be in communication. If you mentored someone, I would be emailing you and explaining to you what you need to do to get your money. Somebody asked about having the PowerPoint to review. All of the sessions are recorded and all the PowerPoints will be available after Friday, and all the credit will be posted after Friday also. It's a long week, so give me at least a week after to get everybody's credit posted into Midas. Back to cars and equipment. This was kind of a new thing that came up a few years ago. I don't know if it was 3 or 4 years ago. You need to have fire extinguishers, first aid kits, reflectors, instructor mirrors, and dual control brakes in your vehicle. I have noticed by talking to some of your maintenance people that there's when they've been inspecting and doing your vehicle inspections, that you can either send this out to have it done by an SAE mechanic, or if you have your own mechanic there at the school, make sure they're inspecting your cars at least once a year. I would suggest doing it more than that because they're driven so much. But they really need to inspect their brake. There's some people that have had that brake in the vehicle for a very long period of time. That cable needs to be replaced. It's not meant to last year after year after year. If you get a new car, don't put that old brake in your new car. Buy a new one. We give you funding to purchase new brakes. Don't put old defective equipment back into your new car. But please have your people that are doing your vehicles and taking care of your vehicles check that that cable that's for your dual brake. We've had some problems come up with that lately. Allison, can you open the Q&A and answer those questions too, please? Collisions involving the drivers of education vehicles. We just talked about that already. If something happens with your car and it's just you in it and you're just preparing it, make sure your boss knows, that your supervisor knows that something happened. But if there's a kid in the car, make sure that you file a police report. Regardless of the damage, state vehicles are required to have collision reports with the police. If they tell you that it's not enough damage, tell them you're required by state statute that all state vehicles have to have a police report, and they will do it upon request. And also make sure you don't forget this important piece of letting the parents or the guardians of the students in the car know that something happened. Because that kid doesn't need to go home and tell their parent they got in a crash today and nobody contacted that parent. They're going to probably be pretty concerned about it. Student records. I get this question quite a bit. How long do you need to keep student records? 7 years. Utah law requires it to keep them for 7 years. These are the items that you need to have: the student's name and permit number, student's grade and driving log, completion dates, observation, classroom, online, signatures, who the instructors were, what their grades were, when they completed everything. All of this needs to be kept secure for 7 years. Pretty cut and dry. Do we need to do reports to incidents that happened during the driving range on school property? If someone got injured, I would definitely have the police come and do a report, because that's just going to save you liability wise, because you don't want a student saying they're fine and then all of a sudden 2 days later they have some severe head injury or something that occurred that now there was no documentation of somebody actually saying that the student didn't have that occur. So if there's an injury of some kind, or even if you think that there is, I would have the police come and do a report, even on private property, just to save yourself. Also, your school policies, you need to follow those. I would guarantee you that your school wants you to report any collision, whether it happens on school property or outside of school property. Allison put in there that it's $1,000 or more. Actually, it was raised, this new statute was 1,500 or more. However, because it's state vehicles, you can request a report, and I would always get a report. That's something that is really going to save you. Over report, over document. It'll save you every time. Minimum course times. Everybody should know this: 27 hours for classroom, 30 hours for online or blended courses. We have some people doing blended now. I want to talk a little bit about online. When we first started doing online, there was a reason for it. It was to get students who were very busy and couldn't take driver's ed into our courses and taking training, driver's ed training. We have become too dependent on online training. Students learn better in the classroom. Not all students can learn online. Let me repeat that. Students learn better in the classroom, and not all students learn online. So you're going to have very few students that are actually going to thrive in the online area. However, we have gone very heavy to online. I don't know if it's funding or it's just easier, but we need to kind of pull ourselves back and make sure that we're doing justice to the program by not just throwing everything online. The online course that we provide to you from USBE isn't meant to be taught in the state that we give it to you. You need to put effort into it to make it be your own course. You need to buy software so that the students can't fast forward through the information and through the videos. You need to make sure that you put boundaries on your quizzes and tests so that they don't just go in and take them multiple times over and over again. You need to just allow them to take them twice and then it locks it up. You need to put your own assignments into that online class. Put effort into the model that we gave you and make it be your own. If you need help, we have people to help you with that. Online was only intended to reach that extra audience of students that couldn't take the class because they were too busy. So let's kind of think and pull ourselves back a little bit that I know COVID pushed us to online, but now everybody's staying online. If you can bring it back to the classroom, please try to do so. We'll continue to provide you the online course through USBE once a year. We'll give you a new course outline. Save your old one, get the new one. We'll only make changes in it if, with stuff that we've felt like is going to make it better for you or help you. But let's not throw away the classroom. Just kind of want to put that out there to everyone. We have really gone heavy with online. The materials you have with AAA and the training that we've been doing will continue to do more. I'd like to see people come back to the classroom. The workbooks that you have that you were sent from AAA are meant to be a parent type of workbook. You can use it for your online course too. So if you only do online, use that workbook, give it to the kids. You can use the textbooks when you're online. Put some AAA materials in your online course and use those textbooks. The students can take them home, check them out, bring them back if they want to. So add those type of things in there. There's a lot of activities and information within that AAA information that you can do in your classrooms that are really fun and entertaining for them. There was a few questions that went out about required course content and what information you can use. You need to make sure you're using the standards, the driver's licensing handbook. If you need more handbooks, go down to your local your DLD office and get them, or send in an order to me or to Sharon Harward, and she can make sure that your the warehouse sends them down to the driver's licensing office so you have plenty of them. Don't just teach without the handbook because you can't get them. Reach out to me if you need to know how to get them. There's a whole warehouse full of them. The 2 approved curriculums we have is AAA, and you can also use DriveRight. Required training within our statute says that you must be doing 1 hour rail safety training, and you need to have 1 hour parent guardian education. So you need to use zero fatalities if you want. Set up your own parent information. Make sure you're involving those parents. We have a very low percentage of parents assisting in driver's education. I did a survey twice already, and we're only at about 18% of parents are actually driving with their students and being involved. We need to get that percentage up. Rail safety, you can reach out to Utah Rail Safety, which is Operation Life Safe. They have a video that they can have you do. You can do your own videos if you want. They can provide you with the training, or you can have them come into your classrooms. But those are required contents for your classroom and your online. Okay, thanks, Alice. We're doing that, answering those questions. Hopefully most of the questions got answered by Allison in there. If you had a question and I wasn't able to get to it, I apologize. I have 4 screens coming up here. If there's something that you would like to have answered, just send me an email. That's my email on the screen, or my phone number. Like I said, I've talked to most of you, so you're very aware of how to get a hold of me. Since we have a little extra time, I can kind of see if I can go back and play this video for you. Any other questions somebody has, you're welcome to answer them before we go to the next section. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is just a short clip out of the new training session that we're doing for you for the road skills test and for DIMS training. All right, hopefully you guys were able to see that. There was no audio. We just played music in the background. Obviously, when you do the training, there will be people talking to you. So that's kind of a little quick, short view of what it's going to look like, and hopefully you guys enjoy it, and it should be really good training for you.